RadioShack is an American retailer founded in 1921.
Finding a phone in a car isn't that unusual anymore, except when it leaves the car, for greener pastures, the high seas, or a leisurely lunch. RadioShack keeps you in constant communication with their affordable, transportable cellular telephone.
Hello? Oh, yes, he's right here. It's for you.
Yes, I heard about the merger. Buy 100 shares.
The affordable, transportable cellular telephone, only at RadioShack.
The company was started as RadioShack in 1921 by two brothers, Theodore and Milton Deutschman, who wanted to provide equipment for the then field of amateur or ham radio. The brothers opened a one-store retail and mail order operation in the heart of downtown Boston. They chose the name RadioShack, which was the term of a small wooden structure that housed a ship's radio equipment. The Deutschmans thought the name was appropriate for a store that would supply the needs of radio officers aboard ships as well as ham radio operators. The idea for the name came from an employee, Bill Halligan. Bill would go on to form the Hallicrafters Company. The company issued its first catalog in 1939 as it entered the high-fidelity music market. In 1954, RadioShack began selling its own private label products under the brand name Realist, changing the brand name to Realistic after being sued by Stereo Realist. The chain was based in Boston. It was commonly referred to by its customers as Nagasaki Hardware, disparagingly, as much of the merchandise was sourced from Japan, then perceived as a source of low quality, inferior, as well as inexpensive parts. After expanding to 9 stores, plus an extensive mail order business, the company fell on hard times in the 1960s. In 1963, Charles Tandy purchased RadioShack, which was at that time on the verge of bankruptcy, for $300,000. Within 2 years, Tandy was making a profit on a company that had nearly $800,000 in uncollectibles when he took over. By 1973, the Tandy Corporation was opening 2 RadioShack stores every working day. Charles Tandy was a modest man from Fort Worth, who stayed in his original office and answered his own phone until the day he died. While his CB radio moniker was Mr. Lucky, Tandy's success was, according to analysts, due to more than just luck. They gave much more credit to the 3 key marketing strategies that Charles Tandy developed and implemented. First, Tandy stressed the importance of gross profit margins. Popular wisdom said a chain's store profits lay in cutting prices to yield a high sales volume. Tandy thought differently. As far as he was concerned, cutting the profit margin cut the profit. So he maintained market prices, but reduced RadioShack's 20,000 item inventory to the best-selling 2,500 items. Second, Tandy kept RadioShack prices competitive. He eliminated a whole spectrum of middleman costs by limiting stock to private label items. At first, the company established exclusive contracts with manufacturers, but as RadioShack grew, more and more items were designed and manufactured by associates or subdivisions of the Tandy Corporation. The third arm of Charles Tandy's strategy was, in the words of one company official, to institutionalize entrepreneurship. Tandy Corporation and RadioShack employees were living testimony that hard work and impressive sales earned their own rewards. Store managers, division vice presidents, and Charles Tandy himself regularly earned 8 or 10 times the relatively modest salaries through bonuses based on the percentage of the profits they had a direct hand in creating. This policy spawned some 60 homegrown millionaires. In 1978, Charles Tandy died of a heart attack at the age of 60 in November of 1978. By the late 1970s, RadioShack entered the new computer market. The sale of 100,000 computers between September 1st, 1977 and June 1st, 1979 kept RadioShack comfortably in the black even as the bottom dropped out of the CB radio market. In 1982, the breakup of the Bell systems encouraged subscribers to own their own telephones instead of renting them from local phone companies. Radio Shack offered 20 models of home phones. Radio Shack's market share in the hot computer market started to fizzle out. By 1984, Radio Shack's impressive 19% market share had plummeted to under 9%. One of Tandy's problems was the outgrowth of Charles Tandy's policy limiting Radio Shack to private label items, preferably manufactured by one of Tandy's subsidiary divisions. As software and application software poured out of Apple and IBM compatible systems, fewer and fewer serious computer users were willing to limit themselves to software designed exclusively for Radio Shack's TRS-80, or Trash 80, as some sneeringly referred to it. By 1990, Tandy was the world's biggest manufacturer of personal computers. Its OEM manufacturing capacity was building hardware for Digital Equipment Corporation, Grid, Olivetti, AST Computer, Panasonic, and others. The company manufactured everything from store fixtures to computer software to wire and cable, TV antennas, audio and video tape. At one point, Radio Shack was the world's largest electronics chain. In June of 1991, Tandy closed or restructured its 200 Radio Shack computer centers, acquired Computer City, and attempted to shift its emphasis away from components and cables toward mainstream consumer electronics. Tandy sold its computer manufacturing to AST Research in 1993. In 1992, Tandy attempted to launch a big box electronics retailer, Incredible Universe. Most of the 17 stores never turned a profit. Its 6 profitable stores were sold to Fry's Electronics in 1996. Tandy closed a number of their other stores, called McDuff's, and abandoned Incredible Universe in 1996, but continued to add new Radio Shack stores. In the mid-1990s, the company attempted to move out of the small components and into a more mainstream consumer market, focusing on marketing wireless phones. This placed the chain, long accustomed to charging wide margins on specialized product not readily available from other local retailers, into direct competition against vendors such as Best Buy and Walmart. In May of 2000, the company dropped the Tandy name altogether, becoming Radio Shack Corporation. The last annual Radio Shack printed catalogs were distributed to the public in 2003. In mid-December 2008, Radio Shack opened 3 concept stores under the name Point Mobile to sell wireless phones and services, netbooks, iPod, and GPS navigation devices. The standalone Point Mobile stores were eventually closed and the concept abandoned in March of 2011. In August of 2009, Radio Shack rebranded itself as The Shack. Oops, wrong Shack. The campaign increased sales of the mobile products, but at the expense of its core components business. On February 5, 2015, Radio Shack announced that it filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, using bankruptcy to end contractual restrictions that had required it to keep unprofitable stores open. The company immediately published a list of 1,784 stores which it intended to close, a process it wished to complete by the month's end to avoid an estimated $7 million in March rent. The bankruptcy court approved a $160 million offer by the Standard General affiliate General Wireless, gaining ownership of 1,743 Radio Shack locations. Radio Shack was criticized for including the personal information of 67 million of its customers as part of its assets for sale during the proceedings, despite its long-standing policy and a promise to customers that data would never be sold for any reason at any time. On March 8, 2017, Radio Shack filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy for a second time. Of the then 1,300 remaining stores, several hundred were converted into a Sprint-only location. As part of the bankruptcy, General Wireless liquidated most of the stores and its inventory and sold the trademark name to Kensington Capital Holdings. In October of 2017, General Wireless officially exited bankruptcy and was allowed to retain the company's warehouse, e-commerce site, dealer network operations, and up to 28 stores. In November of 2020, RadioShack's intellectual property and its remaining operations, about 400 independent authorized dealers, about 80 Hobbytown USA affiliate stores, and its online sales operation were purchased by Retail E-commerce Ventures, REV. Thank you for watching. If you like this content, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Thanks.